but that's the basics on the NLA Works Cited. For this essay, it's not going to be a huge number of points if you don't have a citation, but obviously I am going to be on the lookout for plagiarism. So if you're using information that you find on Wikipedia or something like that, make sure to cite it. If you're not sure how, or if you're not sure if you're doing it correctly, send me an email. Let me give you an example of Wikipedia before we finish up. So let's say you, like me, decided I want to do some research on Smokey the Bear. Okay? And maybe you're doing brainstorming and you're like, well, where did Smokey the Bear come from? You type in Smokey the Bear Wikipedia. There's Smokey. And you'll notice they've got information on the first page about where Smokey came from. It says, Smokey the Bear is an American advertising icon created by the U.S. Forest Service and artist Albert Stahl. Notice those two little numbers right at the end of that. Those are citations. They're using a different citation style because it's a Wikipedia article, but they're still citing information. So if I said, okay, well, that's the information I want in order to answer the first part of my introductory paragraph, well, how do I access that? Click on the link. There's a link to the page I just had open about the campaign. So you can use Wikipedia to find sources. You just can't quote Wikipedia itself. So I can't quote the Wikipedia page on Smokey, but I can quote the articles that they have linked. So that's the basics of NLA. It's a writing style that covers every different type of citation. It has its own specific types of formatting, but I'm not going to get into those now. All I really want you to focus on is answering those fundamental questions about the essay, citing one source, and having a works cited page. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the icon essay. Real quick, let me give you a little bit of information about the next big project, which is going to be due at the end of spring break. I will probably move this into the week 7 module, or move it into the spring break module, because it's not due until March 17th, so almost a month away. You all will be writing an essay about your experience as an American or coming to America, and how your culture was formed, how your sort of cultural beliefs were formed, and what influenced you. Before you can do this, you're going to need to read some essays from Mirror on America about this. So there are 4 essays. There's more in the book, but these are the ones that I would like you to read. One is Do I Look Like Public Enemy #1 by Lorraine Alley, who is a Iraqi-American, Arab-American woman who has experienced discrimination coming from being an immigrant from Iraq and dealing with the U.S.'s conflict there, 9/11 and discrimination from all that sort of stuff. She talks about how she is both sort of characteristics of her Iraqi Arab heritage, as well as very quickly becoming an American. She grew up here. So she played with Barbie dolls, an American icon. She listened to pop stars. She listened to, this was the 90s, she listened to New Kids on the Block. She absorbed all of this American culture. They've Got to Be Carefully Taught by Susan Reddy Cohen is about the idea, it's sort of making fun of the idea that we stay connected to our heritage from other countries very, very long. She makes this argument that though we all, most of us outside of Native Americans are from other parts of the world, very quickly we tend to lose those traits. Within a generation or two, we tend to take on American traits. And it's maybe, in her argument, sort of counterproductive to focus too much on that history and have a better understanding of what the American traits are. Home at Last by Dinua Megetsu is about him coming to America from Somalia due to the conflicts there, and realizing he's in a sort of transition space between his home in Africa that he never really knew that his parents were from, and his new home in the US, and sort of how does he adapt to that. History Tells Hard Stories That I Think Clashes by Leonard Pitts Jr. Is about the issue of coming to terms with the more negative parts of American history. How do we do that? Is it good to try to talk about those issues? Is it better to ignore them? How do we move forward from the negative parts of American history? So once you've read these essays, you want to write a 5-paragraph essay similar to one of these. Now these essays are much more than 5 paragraphs. Yours doesn't need to be that long. And all I want you to do is ask yourself, what were the big 3 influences on your culture, your identity as an American? Who or what were the 3 things that influenced you the most? So influences could include your parents, where you grew up, the peers, the friends you had as a kid, teachers, what media you watched, what movies. It could be your gender, it could be your race, it could be your sexual orientation. It could be any number of things. It could be books you read, what have you. So figure out what the 3 are, figure out how they influenced you. How is your identity formed? The other thing to keep in mind is that your experiences may be nothing like the authors. They may be totally different, and that's okay. In order to do this essay, all you really have to do is try and answer the questions in any way you can. For some of you, you may not be American citizens. Maybe you just immigrated here. Maybe for some of you, you haven't been in the US that long. It doesn't matter. What's your interaction with American culture been like? How is it different from the culture you've come from? What values of America do you like and have taken on? What values maybe do you think are suspect or something to be rejected or that you're confused about? So, the last thing to keep in mind about this essay is it's a nonfiction essay. It's just explaining your past and how your identity was formed. But it should still follow an essay format. You should have an introduction telling us who you are, a little bit about your background, and it should end with a thesis statement saying, these are the 3 things that formulated my identity. And then in your 3 body paragraphs, you're going to explain how they did that. You can take a look at the essay that I wrote about my own identity formation. It's linked in the heading. And I wrote about 3 things that formulated my identity were my parents, my mother, my father, and science fiction. I'm a big science fiction reader, writer, big fan. And those were the 3 things that made me the person I am today. They're the 3 things that taught me about America, made my values and identity conform to the larger pieces of America. So you can take a look at that for formatting, for ideas, but remember, your essay doesn't have to be anything like mine, and very likely it won't be. You probably have all had very diverse experiences, so it doesn't necessarily have to reflect mine in any way in the format. So that's going to be coming up in a month. So once you finish the Icon essay, you're going to want to brainstorm on your identity, what values you've taken on, how you've been shaped by the culture of America, and start thinking about what would be your top 3. Last, keep in mind this will be due after spring break. So we've got a couple of weeks of other lectures and discussions coming up, and then you'll have all spring break to write this if you don't have time to really get into it before that. Okay, that's it for the week. If you have questions, or if you're having a problem with the discussion or with the Icon essay, please let me know. Again, if you have questions you want posted in the teacher question discussion, post them in there, I can answer them. And if there's anything else you guys are having issues with, please let me know. Okay.